credit for acting swiftly, forcefully, decisively. Israel stands with the United States in its just struggle for peace, security, and self-defense.
Meanwhile, U.S. allies Britain, Germany, and Canada suggested that Iran bore some responsibility for the strike. German government spokeswoman described the strike as a reaction to a whole series of military provocations. British Foreign Secretary said his government had always recognized the aggressive threat posed by the Quds Force. Canadian Foreign Minister said Soleimani's aggressive actions had a destabilizing effect in the region and beyond. It's still unclear what comes next, but with Iran threatening severe revenge, the world will undoubtedly be watching closely. 商江龙 CGTN。
Libya's eastern-based House of Representatives has voted to cut diplomatic ties with Turkey. This comes after Ankara approved sending troops to Tripoli to support the UN-backed Government of National Accord. Now, the Parliament spokesperson said the House voted unanimously to cancel security and military cooperation between the GNA and Turkey. Parliament also voted to bring the head of the GNA Presidential Council, its foreign minister and interior minister to court on charges of high treason. The Benghazi-based lawmakers urged the international community to withdraw recognition of the GNA. The Eastern Parliament is allied with Khalifa Haftar, who is at war with the GNA. Still in Libya, at least 28 people have been killed and dozens wounded in an airstrike on a military school in the capital Tripoli. A health ministry official of the GNA blames those loyal to insurgent General Khalifa Haftar, but Haftar's eastern-based army has not claimed responsibility for the attack. The southern part of Tripoli has seen fierce fighting since last April, when Haftar began an offensive against the GNA. Thousands have been killed and wounded, and more than 120,000 people have fled their homes. Let's bring you more on this now. We're joined by CGTN's Yasser Hakim, live with us in Cairo. Yasser, to begin with, just give us an update on that attack on that military school yesterday.
Yes, it happened late on Saturday night, Tripoli time. And according to the Minister of Health of the GNA, he said that the military students were getting ready in the main hall to go into their dorms and their rooms to sleep for the night. When the attack happened and the air raid took place, which led to the casualties and the 28 deaths so far. He also has called on the citizens in Tripoli to go to donate blood for the wounded. So far also the GNA has accused the Libyan National Army of this attack, and in a statement earlier in the day, the Libyan National Army has denied taking this attack or this air raid on the military school. So an investigation, the UN is calling for an investigation into this incident to know the perpetrators and bring them to justice. Meanwhile, the situation is still escalating on the ground, and there are fightings ongoing between the GNA and the Libyan National Army and the Government of National Unity.
And Yasser, turning now to Turkey's decision to send troops to Libya, tell us more about the Benghazi Parliament's reaction to this, and basically what options they have available if they, are, as we know, strongly rejecting this decision.
The Parliament wanted to put forth a message to the international community that it does not agree to the two deals signed by Turkey with the Libyan GNA, which is the maritime deal and the security deal. At the same time, they reject the interference of sending troops from Ankara to Libya. And they've also, with the decision, they have also called on the Security Council to annul the presidency of Faiz al-Sarraj as head of the GNA, and also that he would be brought to justice. Now, all these decisions are aimed at cancelling any legitimacy towards the Turkish interference in Libya. Obviously, Turkey is saying that it is interfering according to a request by the president or the prime minister of the GNA or of Libya, and therefore it is from its own point of view, it's a legal move. However, the parliament says, as an internationally recognized parliament, it should approve any decision concerning the sovereignty of the country, and that it rejects this decision, which makes all these agreements annulled. And the next step is to try to reach out to the international community to put pressure on Turkey to stop it from sending troops, as well as to the UN and Security Council. What I understand, they are moving also to the Security Council to try to bring to at least announce or release some kind of a resolution to stop the Turkey from sending troops to Libya.
Yasser Hakim, thank you so much for that update, joining us there live from Cairo. Well, time now for a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. Coming up, we take a look at the good and the bad of Come We Stay relationships. And celebrating Kaguro Festival of Hunters in northern Nigeria.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Human rights defenders in Uganda are pushing for a law governing marriage and divorce. The activists are concerned that the absence of such a law denies women the right to own property in the event of a marriage dissolution. The 2009 Marriage and Divorce Bill was tabled in Parliament 10 years ago, but it's yet to be passed into law, as CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga reports.
This couple has been staying together for 4 years now. They have not formalized their marriage according to Ugandan laws and traditions.
It was an invitation home. We both felt that it was more convenient to stay together and probably try to attempt to start a life of two. And apparently it is working out.
Cohabiting is not a recognized form of marriage in Uganda. Many cohabitants argue that they need enough time to know each other. However, rights defenders say this arrangement affects women during separation.
Ladies lose out in a sense that property division, even rights in the family are kind of minimized. So my opinion would be there should be an equal share, equal responsibility or equal privileges to either side.
In neighboring Kenya, a law has been passed prohibiting cohabitants from getting benefits in the event of separation. And in Uganda, promoters of Marriage and Divorce Bill 2009 are pushing for a law that recognizes cohabitants as married couples if they have lived together for more than 3 years.
There should be harmony in the law that provides for both parties that whenever there is a separation, probably both parties should be beneficiaries of what they have made together as a couple, whether they are married or not.
But they are also cautious about extortionists.
I think it should also be done fairly. Like, it would be so unfair. Sometimes, now, for instance of us, the females, sometimes you'll find that the woman doesn't actually work. she has not sweated with a man anywhere, anyhow, and then when the divorce is happening, she needs 55% of the man's wealth.
For 10 years now, Ugandan lawmakers are debating on a law that will help protect and promote family values. But as the debate rages on, rights defenders want equity to be emphasized in marriages. Hilary Yisiga, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Well, let's discuss this a little further. We're now joined here in our Nairobi studio by Judy Thongori, a family law expert and an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Judy, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Now, these relationships are known as cohabiting. In South Africa, we call it fat and sit. Here in Kenya, it's known as come we stay. But how does the law define these relationships?
Okay, let me first start by saying that we also call it come we stay. We also call it cohabitation. And it describes a situation where a man and a woman live together in a situation resembling marriage. That is, they take themselves to be husband and wife, and they hold each other out to other people out there as husband and wife. Yes.
So as you say, it's a situation that resembles marriage but doesn't go to the legal extent of marriage.
Indeed.
Why do you think these situations are so common in Africa, that people don't want to go as far as actually getting legally married?
Okay, and I think there are many reasons. And part of those reasons could even be economical, because you know our marriages in Africa, either you do the traditional one where the dowries and all those formalities are concerned. You do, even if you do the church one or you do the civil one, there's still a sense in which there's finances involved. And I think also that there are many people who are not certain that they want to get married, and so they kind of just start living together, and before they know it, it's 2 or 3 children down the line, it's many years down the line. They started without any formalities, and they end up living as well as does any other, married couple, if you like.
But then tell us about the legal risks then in these cohabiting relationships. I mean, we hear about a spouse in a come we stay marriage that eventually loses the right to property in the event that that relationship comes to an end.
Okay, now that is interesting, and I've read that in recent media. The truth of the matter is that in 2014, we got our new Marriage Act in. It has 5 types of marriages that are recognized. It has the civil ceremony, it has the church ceremony, it has the customary union, which is potentially polygamous, it has the Islamic one, and it has the Hindu one. Now, the come we stay was not recognized as a form of marriage, although in the definitions in the Marriage Act, it is included, cohabitation is included as a definition. However, so what happens is that the court may, despite the fact that it's not part of our marriage statute, the court may presume marriage in fitting circumstances. Okay, so that where a man and a woman have lived together as husband and wife, and I said held each other, understood each other to be husband and wife, and held each other out to be husband and wife, the court will presume and continue to do justice in that case. However, it is very important that those who are cohabiting have capacity to marry, because if a man is married in a system of law, for example, that does not permit polygamy, then he's not fit for a marriage under cohabitation. Okay. See what I mean? If a woman is married, whether under a system that allows a polygamous situation, or whether in a marriage that is monogamous, she does not have capacity to then cohabit and become a wife in this other one. So in the case that was discussed in the media, what happened, and it's very important to clarify, is that this man and woman got married someplace, and then it occurred later, or rather it turned out later, that one of them had been married before in a monogamous union. So that other marriage, the subsequent marriage, was invalidated, as should be the case. So then the courts determined then that if property was acquired in this subsequent union, that property could not be divided, as would be the case if the couple had been legally married, so to speak. I don't know whether I'm confusing whether going round and round.
Perhaps just to clarify specifically when it comes to these cohabiting or come we stay marriages, what are the rights of a spouse when it comes to property ownership?
I see. Once the court declares that the parties are married through cohabitation and makes what we call a presumption in favor of marriage for that couple, then the rights of that couple are as good as any other couple married under the 5 systems that I have told you about. The law does not discriminate against them at all. So if a woman goes to court and seeks for the court to presume marriage, and the court presumes marriage in her favor, then she'll be entitled to the same rights, the same as any other couple, as if she had a marriage certificate, so to speak. And so what are those rights, if I may just say that in a minute? The Marriage Act, the Matrimonial Property Act, recognizes that parties are entitled to property that is acquired during the marriage and to which they have contributed. Contribution can be financial and can also be non-financial. Non-financial contribution includes family care, child care, it includes companionship, includes domestic work, it includes working in a family business, all those that matter in a family.
See.
Yes.
So these are the key steps that Kenya has taken that we understand so far those in Uganda are fighting for in their marriage bill. Thank you so much, Judith Ongori, joining us here in the studio. Now, another news in Kenya, the government is scheduled to begin an aerial spraying exercise in 3 northern counties in a bid to get rid of locusts. The government has acquired 3,000 litres of chemicals for the exercise scheduled for this weekend. But as CGTN's Wakista Nyabwa reports, locals have devised their own methods of battling the invading insects. Let's take a look.
These are unconventional methods of battling a locust invasion, but desperate times have forced these villagers to take desperate measures. Residents have resorted to shouting, honking, banging tin cans, and even enlisting police reservists to fire in the air and lob tear gas canisters at the locusts. But the swarm continues to advance, a swirling mass which blocks out the sun as it inches further into Wajir County in Kenya's north. Swarms of desert locusts have invaded the country's northern region. Marsabit, Wajir, and Mandera are the most affected counties. Government officials believe the locusts crossed into the country from Somalia and Ethiopia.
As government, we have been monitoring closely the situation. However, these insects crossed the border from Elwak on 28th December 2019 and have since moved some parts of this country, and essentially parts that are in northern regions of this country.
With the insects threatening to invade more regions, the government has now deployed an aircraft to begin an aerial spraying exercise in the 3 affected counties. Ground teams in Wajir, Marsabit, and Isiolo counties are also being equipped with sprayers and protective gear to tackle the locusts.
And if we contain them in the neighboring counties to Somalia and Ethiopia, the 3 counties, they will not be able to spread to the other counties.
The north is home to nomadic communities which depend on pastoralism.
If this insect is not controlled, then very soon we are going to talk about drought again because of the impact of the locusts.
In the affected regions, residents continue to battle the locusts in their own way, but after the spraying begins, they hope the insects that have plagued them will be banished from the area. Bulkisa Nyabwa, CGTN.
Let's take a short break. Your business news up next. Coming up, teachers announce strike action in Zimbabwe. And the Kenyan Stock Exchange has voted the best performer over the past decade.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Teachers in Zimbabwe say they won't return to school for the first quarter of 2020. The move comes as unions fight with the government for better living and working conditions. Teachers in the Southern African economy currently earn less than $200 a month, but in a country where hyperinflation is estimated to be at roughly 450%, teachers argue that $200 is simply not enough to cater for their basic needs. Parents are also feeling the pinch of hyperinflation as they struggle to pay increased school fees and other expenses. The government, however, has urged schools not to send home those who won't be able to pay fees on the first day of school this year. Now, among sub-Saharan African stock markets, Kenya proved to be the best performer over the past decade. The Nairobi Securities Exchange is joined only by South Africa in producing dollar-based gains since 2010. According to a new report, the Nairobi Bourse benchmark gauge climbed by about 74%. The JSE's benchmark, on the other hand, went up by just short of 9% as the Zambian and Nigerian stock markets retreated by nearly 50%. At the same time, since 2010, the MSCI Frontier Markets Index improved by around 12%. The index measures the general performance of developing markets. Aside from the weak equity benchmarks, the report overall indicated that the 2010-2019 period was categorized by a dwindling number of listed companies. Well, it was another dismal year for Ghana's currency. It went down nearly 13% against the greenback in 2019, marking the 25th straight year of depreciation. The situation has taken a toll on many businesses, and traders want the government to step up efforts to stabilize the currency this year. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
Nana Adum imports most of his electrical goods from China. It's a surefire way to keep prices low, yet things are getting more expensive. The continuous depreciation of the Ghanaian cedi against the US dollar means he's paying more for the same products.
I already import the goods with the dollar and bring it to Ghana here. We use cedis to buy it. So if the customer come and the price of the goods has been increased, they compared a lot.
In 2008, one cedi bought you $1. In 2020, you need almost 6 to buy that same dollar. There are a number of factors at play, the biggest of which is capital flight. Investors have pulled large sums of money out of the country, concerned over its fiscal health and wary of the government's ability to rein in spending. The impact has been most felt among importers and traders, who say the depreciation is driving up the cost of doing business.
If your capital is like, let's say, $20,000 and stuff, and the exchange rate is, let's assume, 5 cedi. Definitely, if there is, increment in the exchange rate, there's no way we are going to get that 20,000 cedis with the same Ghana cedis. Definitely, we need to go in for more.
Last year, the central bank was forced to inject $800 million into the country's reserves to halt a sharp decline in the cedi's value. The government also issued billions of dollars worth of bonds to boost dollar inflows. Both measures helped stabilize the tailspin, but only for a short while. The Bank of Ghana plans to auction $715 million this year to tackle the cedi depreciation. Traders here hope this intervention will help reduce the cost of doing business as they import goods into the country. But some economists say it won't fix the underlying issues.
The cedi will still struggle because fundamentally the structure is still import-based. That hasn't been taken off. Despite the 1D1F, the industrialization drive, it has not gotten to a point where it can resolve the deficit in the forex supply.
Economists want the government to focus on long-term changes instead, such as reining in public spending, boosting productivity and addressing Ghana's trade and budget deficits. Nana Adum and many traders affected by the weak cedi also want steps taken to boost the country's overall economic fortunes, as they believe in the long-term impact on their businesses. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Seeking an escape from the bitter cold, many Chinese tourists choose Tunisia for their winter destination holidays. The North African country has become a firm favorite for Chinese travelers at this time of year, with many drawn to the culture and history of Tunisia. The country has over 10,000 historic sites and museums. CGTN's Adnan Chouachi has more.
Raf is a Chinese traveler who's visiting Tunisia with his friend.
Unlike millions of tourists who come on organized trips, the adventurer booked the flight and the hotels online and made his own tour of the country.
I've been in Tunisia for a week. I spent one day in the capital, then I moved to the beautiful island of Jaba. The people here are very kind and the cost of the stay is not high. I prefer Tunisia to Europe for holidays.
Some Chinese visitors like to stay at wonderful guest houses where they have an authentic experience.
I'm discovering Tunisia for the first time. The transport is available. We can move easily across the country. I've chosen quiet places for this special period.
The Ministry of Tourism has prepared a special program for visiting Chinese travelers this year. Exploring the ruins of ancient Carthage is still one of their favorite activities.
The Rome-Carthage tour is fantastic. Chinese travelers like to discover these two Mediterranean civilizations. They often visit Italy, then Tunis or vice versa to learn about the history. Chinese tourists are among the best visitors who care about art and culture.
According to official data, the number of Chinese visitors has quintupled since 2010 to more than 20,000 tourists until the end of December, against 5,200 tourists during the same period of 2010. According to the Tourism Department, 9,550,000 tourists have visited Tunisia in 2019. This represents an increase of about 1 million travelers compared to 2018. Tunisia's tourism earnings hit $2 billion, posting a growth of 36.6% in the same period. Aden Shawashi, CGTN, Tunis.
A British vegan is about to bring a landmark case to court in which judges will decide for the first time whether veganism is a philosophical belief, the same as religion. Jordi Casamachana says he was fired after disclosing that his employer had invested pension funds in firms involved in animal testing. Let's take a look.
Jordi Casamachana is drawing a lot of attention. His dismissal by his former employer, the League Against Cruel Sports, has turned into a potential court judgment over the ethical rights of veganism itself.
I want to say to all our viewers, this cause is for all of us, is for everybody around the world. So
online channels focusing on plant-based diets are celebrating Casamachana's role as a champion of the movement.
Veganism is growing so fast. We enter in this new phase in veganism, which is the policy phase, the phase where laws and legislation and policy and regulation starts to play a role in getting the world vegan. And perhaps my case is the first step towards that wide door that is opening to us.
Jordi Casamachana's claim is that he was unfairly dismissed after disclosing that his former employer invested pension funds in companies linked to animal testing. He said he was unfairly disciplined and the decision to sack him was based on his veganism. The League Against Cruel Sports says he was dismissed for gross misconduct. The core of the ruling will be whether or not ethical veganism is a philosophical belief akin to a religion and therefore worthy of the same protection. Veganism and vegetarianism are on the rise, particularly in Europe. Even a few years ago, such a case would have been extremely unlikely. January has been dubbed Veganuary in the UK, a testament that what was once a novelty is now elbowing its way into the politics of health and sustainability.
Farming billions of animals every year uses a huge amount of resources, it produces a huge amount of pollution, and it's something that isn't sustainable for our societies in the long run. So it's something that needs to be addressed, and going vegan is a really powerful option for individuals to sort of choose to make those changes in their lives.
The number of vegans in the UK quadrupled between 2014 and 2018, and almost half of those vegans made the change in the last 2 years. It's a trend in one direction, and a small tribunal court in Norwich may be about to recognise that. The League Against Cruel Sport says the hearing is about the protected status of veganism by law, an issue it says it doesn't contest. Andrew Wilson, CGTN, London.
You're watching Africa Live. Here's what's still ahead on the program. Coming up, celebrating the Kaguro Festival of Hunters in northern Nigeria.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes. The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Northern Nigeria is well known for its rich cultural heritage and festivals. One such festival is the Afan Cultural Festival, celebrated by the Kaguro people of northwest Kaduna State. The community is surrounded by the Afan, which is translated to mean huge rock, and at the beginning of every year they gather to celebrate and worship the rock, which they believe is their refuge and protector. More of the highlights now from CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam.
A beautiful display of culture in Kaguro, a people predominantly hunters and farmers in Nigeria's northwestern region. Hundreds of thousands of locals join their traditional rulers in celebration of a bountiful harvest for the previous year. It's also a day set aside to worship the Afan, translated to mean the rock. The mountainous scenery and cultural display has put Kaguro community as a prime destination for many tourists. And the centuries-long tradition sees the rock as a deity which protects the people from their enemies.
It will interest you to note that a fan festival, which is a national one, is the second biggest festival next to Argungu Fishing Festival in the northwest zone of Nigeria. Our theme for this year, unity as a springboard for development.
This is a rock. It gives us, in geography, it gives a strategic position for clouds to settle, and then you have more rainfall in this area. It represents a sign of security. It represents a lot of things. You will see it's difficult for anybody to come from here to attack our people because the person doesn't know the terrain of the mountain. It is our people that understand the terrain of the mountain.
The festival is celebrated with great splendor in line with historic specifications. Selected hunters sanctify the hill by burning it to announce the beginning of a new hunting expedition. They return to the foot of the rock to pay homage, carrying the heads and skins of animals.
Hunting has been our tradition for generations. We are here to showcase our hunting heritage to the world. Many do not understand what hunting entails. They only see the meat in the market and buy it. So this Afan festival is to display our rich hunting culture.
Aside the excitement this festival brings, it's targeted at promoting unity and tourism. The celebration, which ushers in the new year, has been a tourist attraction for many years, and the people are certain to uphold that culture for centuries to come. Kelechi Mekalam, CGT and Abuja, Nigeria.
To Senegal now, where the government has dedicated the first Saturday of each month as a National Cleaning Day. The program is expected to be carried out in all 14 regions of the country under the leadership of the Territorial Administration. The cleaning project was announced last year by President Macky Sall during his inauguration speech. Senegal has previously suffered with a lot of plastic waste pollution. The country's 2015 law banned polythene bags, but seems not to have been well implemented. Senegal is now planning on introducing a new law that will ban a wider range of plastics.
We have planned to arrange all the spaces that need to be cleaned and restore public gardens. We've always wanted public gardens because in Dakar, We will arrange the roundabouts, the spaces between the roads, and make our city green and attractive.
And coming up in your sports news, up next. Kenya's steeplechase Olympic gold medalist Conseslus Kipruto looks ahead to defending his title.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
In your sports news, athletics will no doubt be ever popular in the coming up Olympic Games, and Kenya's Conseslus Kipruto, who is one of many Brazil champions, will be looking to defend his title in Japan. The athlete rose to glory after bagging gold in the men's 300-meter steeplechase at the Rio 2016 Games. In an interview with CGTN's Mohamed Abubakar, Kipruto started by describing how it felt to hold on to his world title in Doha last year.
When I was in World Championship, I was really focused. I knew it was the defending champion, and I wanted to defend it. I wanted to be triple world champion. I got those things in my mind, and you know when you have morale, and then I have that morale like I'm a champion.